Hello and welcome to another TLDR US video. In what's somehow not the spiciest twist of the past 7 days or so, what was previously scheduled to be a presidential debate between Donald Trump and Joe Biden has, much like the nation, been split in two. Both candidates took part in town halls from separate locations on separate networks. Biden's aired on ABC from Philadelphia, moderated by George Stephanopoulos, and Trump's aired on NBC from Miami, moderated by Savannah Guthrie. Frustratingly, these occurred at the exact same time, which is the kind of mindless absurdity that we should have learned to just expect at this point. Needless to say, this isn't the standard format for a presidential forum 3 weeks out from the election. So in this video, we'll explain why it happened this way, and then run you through some of the key moments from both town halls. If you like our videos and want to see more of them every time we post, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon. Also, if you're interested in news from the UK or EU, we also have channels covering that. Those are linked down below. Trump and Biden were originally scheduled to share a debate stage in a town hall format tonight, meaning that audience members, instead of a moderator, would ask most of the questions. But after Trump's coronavirus diagnosis, the debate was moved to a virtual format. This didn't sit well with Trump, for reasons beyond anyone's imagination. So Trump just said no, to which Biden pretty much responded, "Okay, your funeral," and organised to appear in a town hall by himself. Trump, feeling left out, decided to organise his own town hall, and because evidently the President of the United States had a bad case of FOMO, he scheduled it at the exact same time as Biden's. This, many speculated, is because Trump wanted to have higher ratings than Biden, so that he could brag about, well, having higher ratings, which is on brand for him. And so, well, that's what we got. Two town halls meant to inform voters about the differences between two candidates, airing at exactly the same time on two competing networks. As for expectations, this was generally expected to benefit Joe Biden. That's because it's pretty widely accepted that Biden is a good retail politician, meaning that he's very good at playing the quiet, empathic listener. Trump, on the other hand, is a more combative person, and generally likes being able to fight people. A strategy that might work in a standard debate, but isn't quite so good when you're talking to undecided voters. And, well, events pretty much followed those expectations. But enough generalising, let's take a look at what actually happened. Since questions mostly came from audience members and not the moderators, the topic segments were less clearly defined than in the first debate. However, both town halls did start with a similar discussion: coronavirus. For Trump, this was obviously a tad more personal, given the past couple of weeks have seen him develop COVID, get hospitalised, leave hospital, and struggle to prove that he tested negative again. This time he did more clearly try to enunciate that he tested negative again, though he wouldn't say when his last negative test, prior to testing positive, was. But perhaps the most interesting thing said on the coronavirus came from up north in Philadelphia, where Biden said that he might consider a vaccine mandate. Given the rise in suspicion about vaccines in general, and especially a coronavirus vaccine, this will obviously be an incredibly controversial move for some. Whether or not he'd actually follow through on it if elected, well, we just have to wait and see for that one. Back in Miami, Savannah Guthrie pressed Trump on his often hesitant-seeming denunciations of white supremacists and QAnon. The former he more clearly stated his opposition to this time around. The latter, however, he was very careful not to actually attack, claiming that he knew nothing about them, and even at one point defending them, saying they are very much against paedophilia.
I know nothing about QAnon.
I just told you.
I know very little. You told me, but what you tell me doesn't necessarily make it fact. I hate to say that.
There's not a satanic pedophile
I have
cult
no
being run
idea.
by.
I know
You
nothing
don't
about
know
that?
Guthrie did also question him on his use of Twitter, and the idea that he uses the platform to regularly spread conspiracy theories.
Just this week, you retweeted to your 87 million followers a conspiracy theory that Joe Biden orchestrated to have SEAL Team 6, the Navy SEAL Team 6, killed to cover up the fake death of bin Laden. Now, why would you send a lie like that to your followers? You retweeted
That was
it.
a retweet. That was an opinion of somebody, and that was a retweet. I'll put it out there. People can decide for themselves.
You're
I don't
the
take a
president.
position.
You're not like someone's crazy uncle who can just retweet whatever.
That was a retweet. And I do a lot of retweets. And frankly, because the media is so fake and so corrupt, if I didn't have social media, I don't call it Twitter, I call it social media, I wouldn't be able to get the word out.
Trump did, however, come a bit closer to committing to a peaceful transfer of power than he's done before, so it's a mixed bag for Democratic stability. Back in Philly, Biden tried to present his case to young black voters, a potentially decisive segment of the population, by promising investment, especially in early education and historically black colleges and universities. He was pressed on this by a progressive black college student who didn't seem particularly thrilled with the case that Biden presented, which Biden appeared to notice and told him to talk to him after the debate if he wanted more.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was just saying, do you hear what you needed to hear?
I think so.
Okay.
Well, there's a lot more. If you're going to hang around afterwards, I'll tell you more.
Okay.
The former vice president was also pressed on his 1994 crime bill, which, likely to the dismay of many voters of colour and progressives, he defended. However, he tried to balance that out by saying that drug use should be countered with rehabilitation, not imprisonment.
Well, first of all, things have changed drastically. That crime bill went and voted. The Black Caucus voted for it. Every black mayor supported it. So I also wrote into that bill a thing called drug courts. I don't believe anybody should be going to jail for drug use. They should be going into mandatory rehabilitation. We should be building rehab centers to have these people housed.
A few minutes later, he attempted to straddle a similar line by advocating for police reform, but not defunding. Trump, meanwhile, was trying to defend his personal financial situation, specifically the $400 million of debt that he appears to have. It's been speculated that some of this could be owed to adversarial foreign nations like Russia and China, but the president refuted that, saying that he categorically didn't owe Russia money. Strangely, he also seemed to try and defend his debt by saying that $400 million is a peanut.
When you look at that, the amount of money, $400 million, is a peanut. It's extremely underlevered. And it's levered with normal banks. Not a big deal.
Which, and this is going out on a limb here, seems like an assertion that might not resonate with a whole ton of average working Americans. But I digress. The next major topic at both town halls was the Supreme Court. Here, both candidates clearly tried to present a moderate image. Trump unequivocally said that he had not discussed the election or Roe v. Wade with Amy Coney Barrett, and that he didn't want to have any influence over her decision in either matter. Biden, for his part, said that he's not a fan of court packing, stating that he saw it as something that would only escalate back and forth motions in government in the long term. He did, however, fail to definitely say that he wouldn't add any more justices, furthering his increasingly tedious determination to avoid answering that question. In a similar vein, Biden voiced concerns about the state of LGBTQ+ rights, especially given the questions being raised regarding rights and the Supreme Court. He came back to this later in a response to a question from a mother of a trans girl, stating that he would work to repeal all laws that restricted the rights of trans Americans.
I will flat out just change the law. Eliminate those executive orders, number one. There should be zero discrimination.
Biden put particular emphasis on the worrying rise of violence against trans women of colour, and made clear that this was an issue he wanted to work towards fixing. As Trump's town hall was wrapping up, Guthrie allowed him to present his closing argument, which gave him the opportunity to be as message disciplined as we've ever seen Trump. Touting the economy, the military, the borders and taxes, Trump asked voters to pretty simply give him a second term. Though Biden didn't have a similarly styled closing message, he was questioned on what would happen if he lost, to which he responded he'd go back to teaching. He was also asked what he thought a Trump re-election would mean for the nation. His response was probably among the most interesting moments of the night.
Well, it could say that I'm a lousy candidate and I didn't do a good job. But I think, I hope it doesn't say that we are as racially, ethnically, and religiously at odds with one another as it appears the president wants us to be.
This gets at what's probably the biggest takeaway of the night. Biden was widely perceived to present himself as humble, empathetic, and gentle. Trump presented himself more aggressively, and although he had moments of connection, his town hall felt more contentious, and his attempts to play himself as a victim contrasted starkly with Biden's willingness to let audience members correct him and to admit his own shortcomings. For Americans flipping back and forth between the two town halls, that difference in mood, more than any policy difference, may have made the real difference. But maybe we're wrong on that. What did you think? Did you watch either of the town halls? And if you did, how did they make you feel? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to be notified every time we release a video. Special thanks to our Patreon backers who make videos like this one possible. And if you want to see your name at the end of videos, then be sure to back us on Patreon. There's a link to that in the description.